Let me take you on a quick tour of Calgary. First thing you'll notice, the skyline. With the mountains in the background, it's good. You'll probably take a picture. As you move towards the inner city, you'll feel its culture, the varying neighborhoods. You'll see art. Something will jump out at you. Oh, I should check that out, you might say to yourself. Welcome to Calgary. The place is bustling. Yeah, see, most people are surprised when they get here. They expect something a little more, rustic. Anyway, settle in. You've got a million different things to do, people to meet, places to see. Start with a little food maybe. Check out the culinary scene. A lot of options. Some of the best restaurants in the country are here. Feel like partying? You more of like a dive bar type, or do you want to hit the club? We could do a beer hall or billiards, live music, whatever you want, we got you. There's major events year-round, pro sports, live music. Major acts come through here constantly. There's something going on every night. If you're a morning person, maybe get up early and take in some of the great outdoors. The city's covered in pathways. The longest paved urban pathway system on the continent, in fact. It's over 1,000 kilometers, or around 620 miles if you don't speak metric. So go for a ride, hit up a park. Go fishing right downtown if that's more your thing. The inner city's got beautiful outdoor spots, and then there's like the outdoors. Head west about an hour, and you'll find yourself right here. Yeah, remember to breathe. See, Calgary's got the unique pleasure of being a major metropolitan city while also being a stunning outdoor destination. All the arts, culture, events, dining, and nightlife surrounded in the most beautiful, most fun mountain and park areas that ever graced your eyes. Then look, I don't know exactly what you're looking for or what your idea of a good time is, but what I do know is that you will find it right here in Calgary. Try us. Be part of the energy.
Good afternoon, everyone. My cheering section right there. Good afternoon and welcome to Calgary Economic Development's report to the community. All right. You're going to be an easy crowd. My name is Geraldine Anderson. I'm the Vice President of Marketing, Communications, Strategy, and Strategic Alliances. Try saying that 3 times fast. And I'm going to be your MC today at our first in-person report to community in 4 years. It's really good to see everyone in this room, and we have an action-packed afternoon in store for you. We're going to hear from our President and CEO, Brad Parry, about the year CED has had and what he's most excited about as he looks ahead. We'll sit down with business and community leaders to talk about innovation, inclusion, community, and how we can ensure Calgary is resilient and ready to embrace the future. Following our panels, we'll hear from Premier Danielle Smith and Leader of the Opposition Rachel Notley as they sit down for one-on-one conversations with Mayor Jyoti Gondek to share their visions for Calgary and for our future. We invite you to take part in the discussion today and share your thoughts on social media. Our hashtag is RTC2023, and you can find us at Calgary Economic on Twitter and Calgary Economic Development on LinkedIn. We would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge that there have been thriving Indigenous economies and economic development in the Treaty 7 region since time immemorial. We acknowledge CED cannot position Calgary for long-term economic success for everyone without working with all nations in the Treaty 7 region to advance economic reconciliation. Today, and all days, we acknowledge that we are on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprised of the Siksika, Piikani, Kainai First Nations, the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney First Nations, who together form the Iahi Nakota First Nations and the Tsuut'ina First Nation. Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3 with historic Northwest Métis homeland. And we acknowledge all urban Indigenous peoples who have made Calgary their home. We are honored to have a special guest with us to provide a blessing. Thank you, Doreen Burgum, an elder and knowledge keeper from the Métis Nation of Alberta, for being here today and starting us off in a good way.
Merci. Tansa Kiwao, Doreen Burgum de Shinnikashawn, Old Zotaitan, Nepapa, Ambrose, de Shinnikashawn, Métis La Femelle, Boudreau, Dumont, Nimama, Mary, de Shinnikishan, Métis La Femelle, Dufresne, Vanessa. So I'm going to share my 4 directions prayer with you today. So I'll ask you to stand and face the east, which is this way. And I'm going to move you around. God, our Creator, we thank you for giving us this day to spend time together with the Calgary Economic Development. Today we stand tall with gratitude and great pride in the spirit and footsteps of our ancestors. God, our Creator, we first acknowledge the east direction, the direction of the sunrise and new beginnings. The east is the direction of the child, so we pray for the youth of the world. Help our youth find the balance between past and present in tradition and spirit. We pray for all the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit children found in the cemeteries at the residential schools. We acknowledge the white race that it represents. Okay, I'll ask you to turn south. Every one of you. God, our Creator, we now acknowledge the south direction, the direction of the summer, warmth, and abundance. South is the direction of the woman, and we honor them as the gateways through which our spirits come to earth. We ask that women everywhere be protected, for they are sacred. We acknowledge the color yellow and the yellow race that it represents. Now we'll face to the west. God, our Creator, we next turn to the west direction, the direction of the setting sun and the autumn season. West is the direction of the elders, and we honor our elders as the keepers of wisdom and teachers of patience. West is also the direction of our ancestors. We proudly acknowledge those who have gone before us. We acknowledge the color red and the red race it represents. Now we'll face the north. God, our Creator, we now turn to the north, the direction of the winter that covers the earth. North is the men's direction, and we honor men as the providers and protectors of the family and the nation. We acknowledge the color black and the black race it represents. God, our Creator, we ask our Creator to be with us today as we do our work. We also pray for peace among the 4 races of humankind. Merci and de Tuanenan.
Thank you, Elder Burgum, for that beautiful prayer. We will hear from many more leaders today, but first, a thank you to WestJet for being the long-standing title sponsor of our report to the community. Thank you also to our other sponsors, all Team Calgary partners whose support allow us to do the work that we do every day. They include TELUS Business, Calgary Arts Development, Post Media Solutions, Alberta Blue Cross, Calgary Co-op, Hayworth, Mount Royal University, and the University of Calgary. Let's have a round of applause for our sponsors. Our first leader to take the stage is Angela Avery, Executive Vice President and Chief People, Corporate, and Sustainability Officer at WestJet. WestJet, as we all know, is one of Calgary's great success stories, a company that connects our city to the world. We are pleased to have Angela with us today. Welcome, Angela.
Well, thank you very much for that kind welcome. It's my distinct pleasure today to provide you with a sponsorship welcome to the Calgary Economic Development's 2023 report to the community. And WestJet is particularly delighted that we've been the presenting sponsor here for a number of years. Thank you for continuing to have us. So, this is a big room. There's a lot of people here. Not everybody knows the whole of the WestJet story, and so I'm going to back up a little bit. I'm not brand new to Calgary. I've called Calgary home for nearly 30 years, and I can tell you I still remain very grateful for landing that first real grown-up job just down the street at Bennett Jones, and I think I may have seen some Bennett Jones folks here today. Because of that first opportunity I had in Calgary, I've spent my career in a business community that's hardworking, innovative, resilient to headwinds none of us could have imagined, courteous to the point of actual kindness, and one that continues to keep its doors wide open for newcomers to our city, even ones that grew up in Leduc and may have watched the hockey game to their chagrin last night. So for me, it's no surprise that Calgary is one of the world's most livable cities. I think it's livable because the investments, the businesses that are represented in this room, and all of the people that work for those businesses represented in this room make in our community every single day. Whether that's supporting the arts, whether that's making sandwiches for kids in need, whether that's supporting wellness and community programs for new Canadians, Indigenous Canadians, or seniors. It's the efforts of the people in this room and the businesses that you represent that make our city better every single day, and I congratulate you for your hard work in that regard. Now, speaking of hard work, WestJet knows it's very fortunate to have Calgary Economic Development in its corner, so thank you, CED. CED is playing a leading role in attracting investment to our community, leveraging the strength of our robust and incredibly important resource sector, developing new economic clusters, addressing the skills gap that we have in Alberta, and attracting talent not only to our province but to our city. Can we please give a round of applause to Brad Parry, his entire team, and the Board of Directors. Thank you, Joe, for all your hard work. These guys work very hard for us every single day. So I'm not going to tell a bunch of war stories about the pandemic. Everybody in this room knows that the travel and tourism sector and WestJet's business was absolutely hammered by the pandemic. But I did want to remind people in the room about how protracted that crisis is. Calgary's such a resilient city, I think sometimes we have really short memories. But it was only H1 last year, so just the beginning of last year, that we actually declared an end to travel restrictions in Canada. This very meeting was held on screens this time last year. We've made a lot of progress in a year, but it's only been a year. And I do want to point out to the folks in this room, because this is really important, it's something that WestJet's extremely proud of, but we may have been one of the only airlines in the developed world that did not take sector-specific government bailout money to survive the pandemic. So how did we do that? Well, we entered the pandemic with an extremely strong balance sheet. But more importantly, we weathered the pandemic because we had the unwavering support of Calgary and this province, including, by the end of the pandemic, a one-of-a-kind MOU with the province to grow the whole of the aviation sector in Alberta. And Mayor Gondek, I know I saw you here earlier. Thank you so much for your support in relation to that MOU and growing opportunities in our city and in our province for our sector. Importantly, too, we had the partnership of the Calgary Airport. Had it not been for the Calgary Airport, it would have been a much harder weather pattern for us to survive. It's because of this support that we're emerging stronger than ever. I want to tell this whole room that WestJet will be offering nonstop flights to 84 destinations this summer from Calgary. This includes new markets in Tokyo, Edinburgh, and Washington, D.C. This will make Calgary the very best connected city for its size in all of North America. We have a world-class lounge at YYC. We have our entire wide-body fleet of aircraft now hubbed in Calgary. They're a lot bigger than that aircraft. And we know that direct air connections are a vital aspect of the city's economic growth. And our commitment to this region, and thanks to that partnership we had through the pandemic, is to double the number of seats that we're flying in and out of Calgary by 2028. So, as we continue to rebuild our business, including last year alone hiring 3,200 people, we thank you for your patience and your support. We know rebuilding back hasn't been without its fair share of turbulence, but to contextualize it for you, we essentially grew back 10 years, what took us 10 years to build in the first instance, in about 4 or 5 months last summer. And so we know people have missed their bags, and we know people have missed their connections, and that's something that we're working on very hard to improve. And you have the assurance of the entirety of the WestJet leadership that we are more committed than ever to get back to the affordable, reliable, and friendly airline that our guests know and love, and that our staff know and love. I hope you're as excited as me to hear from our business leaders today, our community leaders, and I think that government panel might be really interesting. Thank you, CED, for bringing this community together today, and on behalf of WestJet, congratulations, CED, on another exceptional event. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Angela. We will now hear from Joe Lougheed, Board Chair for Calgary Economic Development, followed by Michael Brown, Board Chair for the Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund, and then Brad Parry, President and CEO of Calgary Economic Development and CEO of the Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund. Welcome, Joe.
Thanks, Jerry, and everyone, welcome to our small little party today. On behalf of my fellow board chairs, Michael Brown of the Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund and Patty McLeod from the Calgary Film Centre, and all of the members of our boards of directors, welcome to the Calgary Economic Development 2023 report to the community. It's great that it's in person. We have an exciting action-packed afternoon planned, as you've heard, but before I go further, I would like to thank each member of our respective boards of directors. All of our boards are volunteers, and each of them makes a tremendous impact, not only on CED, but on our community. So to all of my colleagues on all of our respective boards, thank you for all that each of you do to make our city stronger and our community stronger as well. I would also like to acknowledge our Team Calgary partners, and those are our industry partners that work alongside CED and invest in CED to allow us to do the extra work that CED is able to do in the community to attract businesses and attract talent to our city. We could not do as much as we do without the support of our Team Calgary partners, so to each and every one of them, thank you as well. Calgary is certainly a city of opportunity, and it always has been. It's been a confluence of rivers, of peoples, of history, and of cultures, and indeed of big ideas and big dreams. That's why people have moved here. In the past year, our economic momentum was driven by our focus on cultivating a diversified, innovative, inclusive, and sustainable economy in our city. An economy that creates opportunities for all Calgarians, and an economy that also makes our community stronger. This is indeed an exciting time for our city and for CED. Now, of course, challenges do and will arise, but through collaboration with industry, with the community, and all levels of government, Calgary is, we believe, well positioned for the road ahead. To achieve our goals, we need all Calgarians to be able to contribute to and share in our city's economic prosperity. As a civic partner of the City of Calgary and the stewards of its economic strategy, CED plays a central role in advancing our city's economic future. So on behalf of our board and everyone at CED, I would like to especially thank Mayor Gondek for her support in everything that CED does, her colleagues on City Council, David Duckworth, and all of the members of the city administration who work for everyone in the city to make it a stronger place. I'd like to thank all of them for working with CD to position Calgary and all of you and the citizens of our city for long-term economic success. So Mayor Gondek, to your team, thank you. As I said, we are all volunteers, so it is indeed our honor to serve you, to serve our city, and to keep building together. Now, a strategic partner with CD in serving you, all Calgarians, is also the Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund, or for short, OSIF. With an independent volunteer board and administered by CED and created by the city in 2018, OSIF has backed transformational initiatives to support local entrepreneurship and scale early-stage ventures. OSIF has worked to strengthen Calgary's talent pipeline and to drive innovation as a city that brings bright minds and ideas together to solve global challenges. They say that imitation is the biggest form of flattery, and as the first of its kind in OSIF, OSIF has inspired other municipalities in Canada to copy it and to follow similar economic development initiatives that OSIF has undergone. So please welcome me now in welcoming Michael Brown, Board Chair for the Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund. And Mike's going to tell you a little bit about the 5-year anniversary and birthday of OSIF. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. I'd like to express my sincere appreciation for the dedication and hard work by all the members of the board, directors of the Opportunity Investment Fund. I'd also like to echo Joe's comments in terms of the support that we've received from City Council as well as from City Administration. As Joe mentioned, 2023 is a special year for OSIF. Tomorrow marks the 5th anniversary of our fund's inception. It's hard to believe it has been 5 years since this journey began. I've sat on the OSIF board since the very beginning, and as I reflect on my time, the impact and reach of OSIF investments within our city is something I am very proud of. Since its established in 2018, OSIF has been a catalyst to attract investment, drive innovation, and spur digital transformation in our city. And while the fundamental vision for the fund remains the same, this anniversary is an opportunity to emphasize OSIF's commitment to moving our city forward. To date, OSIF has supported a diverse portfolio of 25 investments, demonstrating success through public, nonprofit, and private sector investments. Over the last 5 years, the fund's investments are projected to spur nearly $900 million in economic activity. Support from OSIF has also led in the creation and retention of more than 2,900 jobs and the creation of scaling of 500 companies. Those are some significant numbers. Thank you. But our work isn't done. To continue driving the expansion and retention of new businesses in our city, we must foster an environment that supports innovators. OSIF has been a fundamental element of growth in Calgary's innovation ecosystem. As we look forward to the next 5 years, we are committing to building upon the strong foundation to help Calgary seize opportunities for growth despite changing economic conditions. I am confident OSIF investments will continue to shape our economy and help companies grow and scale to the size of their ambitions. An economy that is diversified and accessible to all Calgarians is really what we all want. Thank you very much.
There's a reason why I'm in Calgary. I think it's like an excitement almost, like an entrepreneurial spirit.
We've made a blood test to detect breast cancer.
We're destigmatizing mental health.
We actually won an Xbox exclusive partnership.
Purposefully creating change for women and women in business.
We're actually the original family that brought Vietnamese food to Calgary.
Really?
Yeah. We've been developing new tech for 15 years, and people walk in here and are surprised that this is happening here.
We're out to do great things in the world. We're connecting people with causes that they care about.
The small business community has been really welcoming.
I've been in tech in Calgary for 25 years now. It's so night and day different.
If you're not cool and you don't care about the world, then I don't work for you.
We say yes to ideas. We all rally behind people who have those ideas.
The more you build here, the more people want to move here.
Once people visit, they really don't want to go back where they came from.
You can fly, fish, golf, and ski sometimes within a week.
There you go. Met a lot of talented Calgarians who gave me tools and tips and tricks.
There's this feeling that we actually care for one another.
People work really hard here, but are also really friendly.
We're seeing a growth in VR, we're seeing a growth in technology.
Look, you can do what you want here. The sky's the limit.
We are building an ecosystem. We are building a future.
Businesses that are looking at Calgary as a hub, I mean, we've kind of got it all.
It's a great place to live and grow.
In Calgary, you are 1 or 2 conversations away from the biggest investment you'll get.
This community, this province is wide open.
They're interested in you as an entrepreneur, and they want to see you succeed here.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Brad, and I'm the President and CEO of Calgary Economic Development and the Calgary Investment Fund, Opportunity Fund. As you've heard, this is the first time that we are getting back together in person in over 4 years. Isn't that amazing? And look at this room. This is absolutely unbelievable. So give yourselves a hand. Thank you so much. You know, as you probably have noticed, we're actually a pretty thankful bunch, if you haven't noticed that yet. So I do want to thank our sponsors. Again, WestJet, the title sponsor that's been around forever. You know, TELUS Business Solutions, Calgary Arts Development Association, Post Media, Alberta Blue Cross, Calgary Co-op, Hayworth, Mount Royal University, and of course, the University of Calgary. I'd also like to personally thank our 75 plus Team Calgary members whose ongoing support we could not do the work that we do without. So thank you for your support, thank you for believing in us, and thank you for supporting our mandate. I also want to say thank you to the team at the Convention Center for hosting us today. A big thank you to our civic partners, our city partners, and our community partners whose collaboration and support makes our job easier every day. And I have to say a huge thanks, if you haven't heard enough of this already, to our volunteer board members who commit their time, efforts, and insights to help guide the work that we do. Lastly, and certainly not least, I want to say thank you to the teams at Calgary Economic Development, the Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund, the Calgary Film Center, with whom I have the honor and pleasure of working with day in and day out, and whose tireless commitment to supporting the growth of our city is humbling and awe-inspiring. You are truly amazing. So I get asked a lot, like, what the hell does Calgary Economic Development actually do? Well, the answer is actually pretty simple. You know, we are here to help position Calgary for long-term economic success. And we do that through the retention, expansion, and acquisition of companies, capital, and talent. As you heard from Joe, we're also the stewards of our city's economic strategy. And in collaboration with all of our partners, we focus on the vision for our city, which is to be the place where bright minds and big ideas come together with an unmatched spirit to solve those global challenges. We also work on sector growth and development, where we're primarily focused on areas where we think our region and our city has the right to win. Some of these sectors include energy and environment, agriculture, enterprise technologies, life sciences, digital media entertainment, aerospace, and logistics. You know, 2022 was a year that saw us deliver on many of our objectives. We helped attract, expand, or retain over 60 companies. We supported the creation, attraction, and retention of over 10,000 jobs. We saw leading companies like carbon capture, upcycling, Six Rings, terrestrial energy, Xero, WestJet, and many others expand their operations and create more opportunities for our city. Our Trade Accelerator program continues to support local businesses. We help build export plans that will help them open up new markets both globally and internationally and nationally. Last year alone, we supported 68 companies. We saw the signing of 38 trade deals, and we held our first Indigenous cohort, which received national acclaim. Another question I get a lot, or we get a lot as a team from companies and people is, what about talent? What are you doing about talent? Do you have the talent that's going to help grow, expand, and scale my business when I'm here? And through the work that we do with our post-secondary institutions and orders of government, I'm happy to say that we've created opportunities for Calgarians to succeed in the workplace through reskilling and upskilling programs. Our Edge Up program saw over 200 displaced oil and gas professionals graduate with new critical digital skill sets that will help them get back into the workforce. The work that we're doing with all of our post-secondaries around work-integrated learning will help ensure that we are providing our youth with opportunities to get hands-on learning at the early stages that they need so they can see the immense opportunities that are happening right here in our city. We also worked with over 50 local companies last year in helping them attract the talent they need to continue their growth through our talent missions that saw us attend over 65 events nationally and internationally. Our creative economy continues to flourish. We now see $2 billion of impact in our community coming from that sector, and that number is only going to grow. We're seeing more gaming, esports, AR, VR, digital media companies setting up a larger foothold in our community. Last year, we actually helped support almost $500 million worth of investment in our film and TV production in our region last year, with projects like Fargo, Fraggle Rock 2, Heartland, and of course, the world-acclaimed hit, The Last of Us. It's no wonder that our production community continues to be recognized globally. And speaking about momentum, we saw a 5th year of record-breaking venture capital investment growth in our city, 5 years in a row. We saw $647 million invested in our community through 64 deals. Those 64 deals represented 89% of all deals in the province. That again speaks directly to the fact that companies don't need to leave our city to build, grow, and scale their companies. We only need to look at some of the incredible success stories that we have, like Virtual Gurus, Philip, Neo Financial, Cement, and Adabotics, just to name a few. And speaking of antibiotics, you'll see Scott later on a panel with me, but they were one of the first investments that we made through the Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund. And now we're celebrating the 5th anniversary of the fund, as you heard. That fund, which was envisioned to be transformational and foundational to help chart and deliver on our vision for a city moving forward. Has it been impactful? Absolutely. We've committed to over 25 investments, as you heard, most of which were Calgary companies, including companies like Avatar Innovations, who are driving our momentum in the energy transformation space, or the work we're doing with Emphasis and the University of Calgary around quantum hubs, or the investment partnerships we've made with local venture funds like Thin Air Labs to help drive our ability to get these crucial scaling dollars into the community and help local companies accelerate their growth. Our investment in globally recognized incubators like the 51, Combine, SVG Thrive, and Plug and Play will help our local companies scale and become globally competitive. We're anticipating that there'll be over 3,000 jobs created. We'll see 3,000 people get trained for much needed in-demand skills with a focus on our underrepresented communities. And we're also forecast to support the creation and expansion of over 500 new companies in our market. That, as you heard from Mike, is going to come up to about $900 million of spurred investment into our city. That's delivering an 11x return on the funds committed so far. All these initiatives that we and many of you are undertaking are making a difference. They're helping change perceptions. We are now taking control of our narrative and making sure that we are telling our stories and not letting others do it for us. We're seeing the results. The research that we do across key North American and European markets show that 90% of business leaders have a positive impression of our city. 76% say that Calgary is now perceived as having a diverse economy. But it's not just business leaders. We're actually starting to see changes on how talent perceives us as well. 72% have a favorable impression of our city. 61% now see Calgary as a diverse and inclusive community. We saw a 12% increase year over year in people who are now willing to relocate to our city. That's a 12% increase in 1 year. That's unbelievable. You know, ultimately, we're building a community where people and companies know that they can come to grow their businesses, expand their business and their careers, and have an amazing life. You know, I was very fortunate a little while ago to meet one of our elders and knowledge keepers, Art Cunningham. And he told a story about a conversation he had with one of his grandchildren. And the grandchild asked him, "When do you know you're old?" I know, that's a tough one. He gave it a lot of thought. And his answer was, "You know you're old when you talk more about what you've done and less about what you're going to do." So look, I'm absolutely thrilled about what our teams have been able to accomplish this last year, but I gotta be honest, I am so much more excited about what's ahead, not only for our organization, but for our community as a whole. And some of that excitement stems from the work that our OSIF and strategy teams are doing with partners like Platform Calgary around ways to accelerate our vision of being a city that's underpinned by innovation, where ideas, companies, and people intersect to unlock solutions for global challenges and drive economic growth and diversification. You know, I mentioned quantum earlier, and this is an area that we should all be excited about. This is the future, and it's happening right here under our feet in our city. You know, the development of some of our key and burgeoning sectors like life sciences, where we are starting to become recognized as a destination of choice. And remember, we will have the second largest cancer research hospital in all of North America here in Calgary next year. Absolutely. I mean, look what's happening with our emerging aerospace sector. You know, we're seeing more and more companies come together to help us be positioned as an aviation hub, where companies are exploring and developing new innovative ideas on a weekly basis. Companies like de Havilland and WestJet, who, as you heard, announced last fall, make the hub of their long-haul flights, making us the most connected mid-sized city in all of North America. We have over 110 direct flights coming out of our community now. And it's this kind of connectivity that will ensure that we continue to see even more record-breaking venture and traditional investment capital attracted to our city. I mean, we don't have to look further than what our traditional energy companies are doing through the Pathways Alliance, who are committed to helping our country achieve its climate change objectives right here. We're seeing cutting-edge work being done by companies across our agricultural sectors that play a critical role in the food security in the future. We've embarked on a path with our partners at the City, Tourism in Calgary, community and corporate partners to help frame and shape our city's brand, not just for today, but for the future. We've had more people move to our city in this last year than we've had in a very, very long time. They're coming from the rest of Canada and coming from around the world. And we know people will come for the jobs, but they stay for everything else, especially the arts. So the work that Patty's doing with the Calgary Arts Development, or what Alex is doing at Arts Commons, or Nick at the Glenbow, or Mark at Philharmonic, and a host of others, we're really, really, really giving people reasons, even more reasons to stay. Look, obviously I'm optimistic, and yes, I'm a cheerleader, it's kind of my job, but I'm excited about what we as an organization see as the future for our city. But we all need to believe it so we can start to see it. We all need to ensure that we make the time, have the ability, and intent to hear from new voices from across our entire community. You know, keeping this momentum, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be a straight line. And it's probably going to be a little bit bumpy. But we have to be a city that continually learns from where it's been, that honors its past, a community that always respects its history, And for us to be truly successful, we have to be a community that looks forward, one that's future-focused. As Elder Cunningham said, we have to be more excited about what's ahead of us versus what's behind us. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Brad, and thank you for being such a tireless cheerleader for our city. I want to take a moment to acknowledge Ukrainian of Calgary Association, a nonprofit formed by volunteers in 2020 to support the people of Ukraine. To date, the organization has helped save thousands of lives by providing medical supplies to 33 hospitals, orphanages, and 27 emergency medical personnel teams. You can donate to this humanitarian cause through their website at uoca.ca. Now, please join me in welcoming violinist Anastasia Lihoshirtsova, who works with the association to perform her original song, Run.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to sing a very special song. I wrote it for my younger sister when she was little, so this song is for kids and for very wise adults. And it's in Ukrainian, so the words are like, it was good in the forest, and the weather was nice, and I asked God, what should I do? And he told me, run until road ends. So this song is very special for me, and it's about not being attached to earthly things and being attached to the kingdom of heaven, and always be prepared. Okay, I'm ready. В лісі було добре, і пахло повітря, і я спитав у Бога, а що ж мені робити? А він сказав, бігти, бігти назустріч вітру, до заходу сонця, до кінця світу, бігти, бігти назустріч вітру, до заходу сонця, до кінця світу. Було добре. Хто був на морі? Українці. І пахло повітря, і я спитав у Бога, а що ж мені робити? А він сказав, бігти, бігти назустріч вітру, до заходу сонця, до кінця світу, бігти, бігти назустріч вітру, до заходу сонця, до кінця світу. І в горах було добре, і пахло повітря, і я спитав у Бога, а що ж мені робити? А він сказав, бігти, бігти назустріч вітру, до заходу сонця, до кінця світу, бігти, бігти назустріч вітру. Glory to Ukraine.
Thank you for that, Anastasia. And it's now my great pleasure to assemble a group of community builders and community leaders to the stage. Please welcome to the stage Mayor of Calgary, Jyoti Gondek, Iliya-Ndule, who is a corporate lawyer at Blake, Cassels, Graydon, and co-founder and president of Calgary Black Chambers, Holly Singer, founder and CEO, Milk Jar Candle, and Lourdes Juan, co-founder and CEO at Fresh Roots. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. What a room, hey?
That's a great chair.
This is my Star Trek chair. Okay, so when we first assembled this panel, it was about bringing the community get together and talking about how no one gets left behind, how the economy only works if it works for everybody. So one of the first questions I want to start with is how does EDIA apply to your everyday role and guide you as a community builder? Why don't we start with Lourdes?
Sure, I can start. Good morning, good afternoon. Hello, everybody. This is the largest crowd I've seen in person in a really long time. It's really great to be here. You know, with my community builder hat on and a lot of the EDIA trainings that we've done as a nonprofit organization, we always kind of talk about how EDIA is a journey, and it's not something that sort of you start and finish. You go along the journey with folks from all walks of life. And I think as a community builder, our job is to really amplify voices in community that don't normally get amplified or don't normally get spoken to, and make sure that we take actions to make life better for those Calgarians and those folks. And so that's sort of, we wake up every day, I think, as community builders thinking about how we can do better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree with Lourdes. Oh, sorry, my voice is so loud. Oh my goodness. I would say that it's something that you don't master. It's something that you're working on every day in your company or whatever you're doing. And it's a really humbling thing to know that. And it kind of removes that fear of not getting it right. Because I think a lot of the time we are so worried about getting something wrong that we are scared to even do it in the first place. At Milk Jar 3 years ago was when I became an inclusive employer, and I didn't know where to start. And so I did some Googling. We're all, entrepreneurs are smart and resourceful. And I found Inclusion Alberta, and that is where I hired 2 of my first employees with disabilities. And now we're a team of 20, and about a quarter of our staff have disabilities at Milk Jar. And I have a little story about that. There was one of my employees, when we were being inclusive, was quite nervous when one of our disabled staff members was going to start. And she's a lovely person, but she was like, I am so nervous of how to act. How do I act in front of the staff member? And I think that was the first time I realized that our community and society has been very exclusive. We fear what we don't know, and I think there are false stereotypes out there of disabled workers and, you know, what diversity means. So it's something that we just have to humble ourselves, know we're not going to get it right, admit to ourselves what we don't know, and be okay with just trying, because that's what's going to make our companies a better place.
So hi everyone, I'm Iliya-Ndule. And I think for me, becoming a community builder was something that I didn't plan, I guess. It's my lived experience. So when you're a woman of color, you're a mom, you're an immigrant with an accent, people help you. You have experiences in life that put you down, and you have people who lift you up. And when you grow from those experiences, you have this responsibility and the desire to help those who may be experiencing the things you have gone through and help them make the experiences a little bit easier. And so that's how I got involved with the communities, to help those who may not have found their own allies and mentors and helping hands, and to try to make it a bit easier for them. And so that's it for me. It's an everyday job that I live and do, and so it's my spiel.
Thank you for that.
Well, you know, my job is pretty much to listen to people and to make sure that you are seen and you are heard and that your perspectives are amplified, as Lourdes said, and to remove the fear that people have of dealing with folks that are different than themselves, and to give back. So all of the opportunities that we've been afforded that have helped us get to these positions where we now have a voice, I owe it back to the community to amplify the voices of those who may not be able to speak up in the same way I'm able to. So one of the big things I like to do is make sure that I share information with all of you. And I had a very interesting series of meetings over a period of 2 days in March, where I met with Ladies in the Family Foundation, I met with Black Business Ventures, and I met with the Advocate for Persons with Disabilities. And all three groups said the exact same thing to me. We need access. We need more access, or we will never get to a point of equity. They talked about how credentials aren't being recognized. They talked about how they don't have access to equity because they're shut down as soon as they're seen, because people aren't used to that kind of a pitch. And the Advocate for Persons with Disabilities said this, and I would encourage you all to remember this. 500,000 jobs in this province contributed $29 billion in annual employment income. That's not typically how we stereotype people with disabilities. We've got to get over the things that we believe to be true and actually understand the facts.
So I might go off script here a little bit. We all have platforms, that's why we're on the stage. So maybe Mayor, I'll start with you. How do we do that? How do we make it so that accessibility is not an issue?
I think we've got to be a little bit less polite than we tend to be. And we've got to call out the problems that we see in the room. We've got to call things out like racism when you see it happening. You've got to call out ableism when you see it happening, and we don't do it in the moment. We're very polite. We wait until the meeting's over. We wait until that particular interaction is over, and then we very quietly go to the person and say, I don't want to bother you, but this thing happened, and I think maybe you could do it differently next time. I think we have to appreciate that doing it in that moment matters a lot so that the people around the table can see it as well. And I'm not asking people to be rude, but you have to start calling things out to recognize what they are and make them better.
Anyone else want to weigh in on that?
I think one of the things that we need to stop saying is I'm sorry. I know it's really built into our culture as Canadians, but it's certainly something that I think is a barrier. And we talked about inclusive growth before the panel, and it's something that we talk about in our communities, but you know, it's something that we need to make sure that we are reaching out to populations so that we are an inclusive society. We all need to believe that we can do that and that it's good for our prosperity as a city.
I think employers need to start listening to their employees a lot more, find out what they want and what they need to be successful. That is the quickest and easiest way you yourself can learn. And entrepreneurs, I think we think we need to have all the answers, but we can learn so much from our employees and people with different profiles than us. There's many free workshops that you can take to learn about gender identities, racism, people with and without disabilities, and how you can be more accommodating to them. And I think there's this thought that accommodations are very expensive, and rarely they are. an accommodation could be a flexible start time, more frequent breaks, and typically an accommodation desired by one employee is desired by all employees. So it makes a positive work culture, and employee retention is a big concern right now as well. Being able to attract and keep talent, and when employees feel like you are willing to listen to them, you hear them, you're going to put the work in and try to find a nice balance and harmony between their accommodation and what works for the company through conversation and trying out new things, they will feel so supported, because that's not what many of my employees have said they had before they came to work for me.
Just something else to add is, I think we need to start to actually hire experts. Sometimes we expect like people in the team who are underrepresented to kind of know all the answers and to tell you what access should look like. But actually hiring an expert to explain to you what needs to be done and giving that person that you hire power or a seat at the table so that when they tell you something to do, it's actually something that can be done. It's, I think, a really good step to access for giving opportunities to everyone, because you're learning, you're listening, and you're actually taking action when you're told, like, this is what you should be doing that you were not doing. You're actually doing those things. I think that's a good way to create this, to start to break those barriers with respect to access.
I want to come back to the taking action, stop saying sorry, and not being as polite as we are or we're trained to be. And I'm going to end with that, but I'm going to pivot for a second. How did Calgary as a community help get you where you are, either personally or on your business journey, to be on a stage today?
The Calgary community has been so supportive of my company. I didn't even pay for advertising the first 4 years, so I don't know how it became known. But I truly believe people care about supporting companies that care a little bit more than just sales and profits, where they know that this is a company that cares about the people in it as well. They're creating equitable job opportunities. And personally, the Calgary community, the opportunity that I've had with Milk Jar has made me a better person. I am speaking more intentfully, more clearly. I just enjoy work so much more. With running a business or in any job, you have those bad days where you don't want to get out of bed because you spent too much money or something. And it truly is my employees that help me get out of bed on those tough days, knowing that Lauren wants to retire at Milk Jar and Ali has gained more confidence in her abilities when they were both unemployed for a really long time before, just is so worth more than selling any candle.
In the video as well, about this entrepreneurial spirit that's in Calgary. I'm on my 6th venture, all started in Calgary. And I think there's this new wave of social entrepreneurs coming to the table and saying we want to create jobs, we want the economy to thrive, but we also want to do good by people and by our neighbors. And that's a really exciting part of Calgary and certainly keeps me going.
For me, it's the people, right? Like I said earlier, I moved here in 2013 and it was a struggle. I didn't know anyone, but some people went out of their way to help me stay. In other words, they made Calgary home. And a big part of that is where I work. And so I'm here because I'm a corporate commercial lawyer at Blake's. I'm also a co-founder of Calgary Black Chambers. But where I work is a big part of who I am. Like, if you don't get some kind of satisfaction from what you do, and for me, I feel like it impacts a lot of who I am and how I impact with the community, right? So a big part of it is the people who have supported me at work, my co-founders at Calgary Black Chambers, and the community who has supported Calgary Black Chambers as well. Like, we started in 2019, just a group of Black professionals who thought we needed to make a change. And we've had the community business leaders support us and sponsor our events and our mentorship program. So that's a really big part of why I'm in Calgary, is the people, really awesome people.
I've said this a lot, that Calgary is a city that took a chance on me. I showed up here in 1997 with a very weird set of credentials. I was a sociologist, but I worked in the financial services sector, and I wanted to finish a degree in corporate social responsibility. And my previous university said to me, that's not a thing. And I firmly felt it was. And the U of C took me in, and they said, we'll help you get this degree done. And I did a research project in the energy sector, and I told the story of how you can be socially responsible and still be a business that can earn a profit. And then I ran a consulting company for 12 years where I went out and I talked to companies about social responsibility. Like that was, I don't think you were born yet, Lourdes, but that's, 2003, I was out there doing these things. And so I had a very weird skill set and a very strange passion compared to what was going on in this city at that time. But people supported me, they gave me that chance, and they helped me get to where I am today. I mean, I had to be persistent in some cases. Like I can remember saying to 2 or 3 different boards, no, but really, 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 just give me another chance. If I apply again next year, just give me another chance. So it's this combination of embracing that which you don't know and helping people up that I really love about this city.
Okay, last question. And we talked about these conversations are a great place to start. They're very important, but they're only half of the equation if it isn't followed up with action. So we have a room of about, 2,000 people here, and they're all community and business leaders. So what's the one thing you want to ask your community to do today to foster inclusive growth? Let's start with Chi this time.
Can I ask for 2? Just because I like asking for more. Exactly. Okay. Yes, 2. So 1 is financial support for groups that support underrepresented communities. I'm going to be quick, but when I moved here as a lawyer, but I was told I wouldn't be able to practice law in Canada, and that kind of set me back a little bit. But I searched, and eventually I found an organization which was really small then called the CRIAC, Calgary Regional Immigrants Economic Council. And what they do is they support international trained professionals and pair them with people in their profession, and it kind of changes your whole story. And so if I didn't find that organization, I probably wouldn't be a corporate commercial lawyer now. And so supporting those kind of organizations, there's so many of them out there. CRIAC is one, Calgary Black Chambers is one. These are organizations that support those underrepresented communities and help them to be the best they can be and to enjoy Calgary that everyone knows is awesome. And the second thing is to really listen to the underrepresented groups, and just sometimes it's good to be heard, because when you're listening, you know what they need to make things better with respect to affinity groups in your organizations or an EDI complaints process. Like when you're listening to when you're really listening, you'd hear what they need, and you can put those things in place and make your organization a truly inclusive one.
Holly?
Before I say my call to action for you all, I asked this question to about 10 of my employees this morning, and I wrote down what they would like to ask of the community, because as nice as it is to hear from me, I think it's even more important to hear from the people we are trying to attract. Humans want to feel like we are a part of something, a part of society. We all have desires of wanting to live on our own, maybe own property. We want to work, we get married, we have friends, and we want to care for ourselves. We love and want to be loved. We want businesses to consider different people for positions in their companies, as we are just like everyone else. Business owners need to be accountable for creating positive workplaces by asking what issues are affecting their employees. You need to talk to them and listen. There is a misconception that if you support your staff well, that it will affect your bottom line, and that is not true. It is quite the opposite. The more you are caring and flexible to your team, the more they are caring to their roles and flexible to you. And right now, there's a huge issue for workplaces being able to retain good employees like us. Change is coming and inevitable, so you might as well get with it. And I would just like to add to that as employers and decision makers, it really is up to us to change outdated hiring practices, challenge false stereotypes of disabled workers, and make more meaningful and purposeful companies. Making a difference is going to take sustained action over a period of time, but if we commit to doing something different, commit to hiring people with a different profile than you and mentoring them and paying them what they are worth, great things will happen. Communities will change, people will change, and places will be healthier and happier, and inclusive companies will no longer be on a panel with the mayor and be the exception. They will be the rule.
How do you follow that? My goodness. You know, I think one of the takeaways from working both in the non-for-profit sector and the for-profit sector is that there are collaborations that can happen every single day. And so my ask is that we stop working in silos and we really start to meaningfully think how we can work together, how we can collaborate. I was at a conference recently and there was a gentleman on stage talking about food security. And it was so great to learn from him, and he had an African proverb that he said on stage, and it really resonated with me. And that's, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that if we all kind of take that into our days, into our work, and into our own little villages, Calgary can really propel itself into the future.
I don't know that I can add anything more meaningful than what my brilliant colleagues up here have said. All three of you are so incredibly inspiring. It was just a pleasure to be on this panel with you. And Jerry, you're amazing at pulling together a great conversation. But I will say this, we are in a period of extreme polarization, and we're seeing it intensify. So I would ask all of you to lead with kindness, compassion, and curiosity. Get to know people that you don't generally hang out with. Start running in some circles that are outside the ones that you have always run in. Get to know some people, build some meaningful relationships, because if we're going to do this, we have to do it together. The divide we've created, we have to get back to a center position of caring about each other.
So we have our marching orders. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing your insights. Thanks so much. Next, I would like to welcome Harold Horsfall, Indigenous Relations Officer with the City of Calgary, to share a few words.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you? Oh, I got an echo. Yeah. How's that? No, that doesn't help. Okay. So I would like to say, who knows the Indigenous languages of Calgary? Throw some out there. Let's hear it. Okay, let's go with the Blackfoot one. Everybody knows how to say hello in Blackfoot? Let's say Oki. Oki. All right, and let's go with Stony Nakota. Does everybody know that one? It would be Amba Wastitch. Okay, perfect. A little more enthusiasm, please. Amba Wastitch. Because it means today is a good day and all is well. So it is a good day and all is well. And let's go with Tsutina, so they say Dada Nastada. And we'll go with the Métis who say Tun She. And myself, I'm Cree, Soto. So Soto is like Plains Ojibwe. And so I'll say Tansei. So my name is Harold Horsfall, and I'm an Indigenous Relations Strategist with the Indigenous Relations Office. I have a couple of projects under my belt right now, and at the back of the room, I have two of my teammates. They're at the back. Let's get them to wave and say hi. So I have Sherry Kellogg and Devin Siebold. And Sherry and I are the co-leads for the Indian Residential School Memorial Project. So if you've been to the municipal building, you'll see the stairs that are on the steps of the building. And then so our project is to create a permanent memorial for those. I'm also leading a heat map project. And so that heat map project is we're going to help to find the areas of cultural significance to the Treaty 7 nations. And we're going to put them onto a GIS layer so that people will know about them. Because if you don't know about them, that's just it, right? How many of us know the Indigenous history? How many of us could have belted out those greetings that I mentioned? So that's one of the tools to help with reconciliation and improving our knowledge. I'm also a chair for the City's Orange Shirt Day Committee. So I'm looking forward to seeing all of you on September 30th at Fort Calgary, right? Thank you, Chantal. And I'm working with Calgary Economic Development on the Indigenous contributions to Calgary as a follow-up to the Alberta Treasury Branch's 2020 report on the Indigenous contributions to the provincial economy. So we're going to zoom in and we're going to look at the Calgary area and try to see what we can see, learn what we can learn. We've done a lot of interviews, so case studies, so that's been the most interesting part. I've gotten to meet a lot of people that are in the Calgary community, in and around Indigenous business. But let me just get on with the show here. And I would like to say that reconciliation is a very large project. I'd like to quote Murray Sinclair, the former chair of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, senator, judge, and former lawyer. And he said that, "I did say at the end of the TRC report that we will not achieve reconciliation in my lifetime. We will probably not achieve it in the lifetime of my children. We may not even achieve it in the lifetime of my grandchildren." So how do we relate to the concept of reconciliation? So I think we should start with time. So let's say that a generation is 30 years. And let's just say that colonization started July 1st, 1867. We know it didn't, but we will just say that. So between then and now is 156 years, or 5.2 generations. 5.2 generations it's taken for this nation of Canada to arrive at our current predicament. So it would follow then that it will take at least an equal amount of time and cooperation and rigor. We're going to have to work hard at it to move towards an equitable economy. And I hope that the contribution, that the collaboration between Calgary Economic Development and the Indigenous Relations Office is one step in that direction. So please give them a hand, because they were very supportive of this project. It's their project and they looped me in. So that is the shameless plug. It takes people working together. It takes cooperation to continue to work together and create the foundation for the real impact that will follow, hopefully before 5.2 generations. And I count on you, the audience here today, to help to make sure that that happens before 5.2 generations. And with that said, I would like to take the chance to introduce our next performer, Chantal Chagnon. Tansei Chantal. And Chantal is a Cree Métis, and when we're Cree, we call ourselves Nehio. So she's Cree Métis Nehio singer, a drummer and artist with roots in Muskeg Lake Cree Nation in Saskatchewan, who now calls Mohkinsis in Treaty 7 her home. So let's give her a big round of applause, please. Thank you.
Tansei, Oki, bonjour, hello. My name is Chantal Chagnon, and I'm very thankful and humbled to have been invited here. I'd like to share with you a song that I wrote actually on National Indigenous Day a couple of years ago. It is our way to welcome people into the circle, but to tell people that all our relations, we care about each other, we love each other, because we need to support each other in our communities. Sakihituin doesn't just mean I love you. It means I love and I genuinely care for you and your future generations, and your ancestors that have brought us together. It's a way to bring people together in a good way. It is to honor our families, to honor our friends, to honor each other, and to honor all our relations. This is Sakihituin, our journey. Hi, Miigwech, Marcy. Thank you.
Wow, amazing. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. Hi, I'm still Brad. I'm still here. We're going to talk a little bit about some business stuff now. We got a panel of amazing business leaders here with me. So to kick things off, I'm just going to ask them to introduce themselves. So Scott, who the hell are you and why are you here?
Hi, I'm Scott. I build robots. Some of you might know me as the founder and CEO of Adabotics. But mostly, I just actually don't talk about building robots. So.
Love it. Salima, same question.
I do not build robots, but...
I'm going to teach you.
Thank you. Salima Shivji, and the organization that I'm here to represent is called Movement 51, where we invest quite heavily in educating women on a financial inequalities that exist. So through our various programs over the Financial Feminism Investing Lab, we focus on educating women and gender diverse people and other people about how to invest in early stage startups like Scott's company. And on the entrepreneurial side, we assist entrepreneurs into accelerating their company like Lourdes.
Easy, thank you. Arlene, same thing.
Thanks, Brad. My name is Arlene Strom. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer at Suncor. And as I was thinking about, in this introduction, should I tell a little bit about what Suncor does, our assets, our business? I thought, no. I wonder what this audience thinks of when they think of an oil sands executive or an oil sands employee. So I want to tell you why I love my job. First of all, imagine yourself in the heart of providing energy, supplying energy for a growing world's needs, and helping to contribute to lowering our carbon footprint and contributing to solving the challenge of climate change. And imagine yourself answering this question that we've heard talked about: how do I contribute to reconciliation? At Suncor, we have relationships with over 150 Indigenous communities, and I'm constantly learning and listening and growing and changing about what it means to be part of reconciliation, to walk beside Indigenous peoples. And lastly, we've heard people challenge us to collaborate. Well, imagine an unprecedented collaboration. You gave us a shout out, the Pathways Alliance to Net Zero. 6 companies that account for 95% of the oil sands productions have come together to say, how can we plan for and implement a pathway to net zero? So if you thought working for the oil and gas industry is passé, think again.
Absolutely fantastic. Well, while we're talking about that, let's talk about ESG. Scott, ESG, good, bad, how does it impact your business?
Relevant. My daughter's here today, and I'm thrilled. This is one of the first times she's had a chance to see me, do this part of my life. I want to create a business that's attractive to her and her generation. And these things are really, really important. They should be important to all of us, but we find if we want to create viable businesses in the future, we have to think more about how we're contributing, how we're benefiting society, how we are becoming a symbiotic member of the communities we're in, both environmentally, socially. These are really important, and I want the best and the brightest. I want them to come work for me. We are hiring. But I want to make sure that the future of this province, and Brad, you said this, like what's next? Not what we were, what do we need to become? And this is a big part of it. Is understanding our role as part of an ecosystem, as part of a community, and doing our best to be the best member of that.
Arlene, what do you think of that? Like, how do you see that? Does that resonate with you, or how does that relate to that? You mentioned the business you're in, but how does that function within context of what you have to do? I mean, you're one of the biggest hiring companies in Alberta. So what's that impact look like for you?
Yeah, I totally resonate with that. It makes so much sense to me. Over the last year, I've been part of a number of interviews within our organization where we're talking to people who are interested in coming to work for us. And there is no exception to this question. They ask us, what are we doing in sustainability? What are we doing to contribute to lowering our carbon footprint? What are we doing in the social realm? How do we treat employees? What are we doing for inclusion? Is it a respectful work environment? So we need great talent. We have 18,000 employees at Suncor, and we expect that we're going to continue to be hiring and needing people with great ideas who can come in and help us on that journey to better performance. And that's the other thing I wanted to say about ESG. I think we have to remember that it's more than just disclosure and telling you how we're doing against a checklist. It's really about performance. And I kind of wish it was more than ESG. I think it should be GEES, G-E-E-S. It starts with good governance. There's an economic component, and if we're successful with good governance and we're contributing to the economy, then we have this license to do amazing things around purpose and social and environmental space. So I think it's super important.
I buy that, actually. I've always said it should be ESGC, and the C should be community, and what that impact is on the community that you're actually working in as well. Salim, I want to throw it to you. So from the 51's perspective, I mean, how does ESG and C or Gs, how does that impact your thesis, and how does it impact the programming that you run?
Yeah, I'd push Arlene and say it's not GEES, it has to be SEG, in that the social component has to come first. So from a Movement 51 perspective, the statistics, and everyone loves them, McKinsey stat there, but in the next 3 years, so by 2025 or 2026, they're estimating that with women economic participation, that pie can grow up to $150 billion. So if we start with the S, which is what Movement 51 has kind of been born from, to really focus on the ability to then grow that pie. And the other stat that we got through INSEAD was a woman is more likely to invest in a company that is led by a female 2 times as likely and 3 times as likely to invest in a women CEO. So if we bring women to the table as investors, train them as investors, ask the hard questions about how do you look at a term sheet, what does due diligence look like, what does the Canadian venture capitalist landscape look like, and we start with that component, then we're just we're making the pie a lot bigger. So just to go against Arlene in some sort of capacity, I think that the acronyms should start with the S, just from our perspective.
Nice. Well, we can debate that after. Look, obviously we've seen the rapid adoption of digitalization and the new economy and things like that. So Arlene, what kind of impact has that had on how you structure your business, you run your business, and how you think about the future of your business?
Well, you know, when you talk about technology and digitization, there's a couple of different angles to go at it. I mean, one is just how we think about data and how we use it. Being able to access it, use it quickly, those are things that are super important right now. And I would say we're still figuring out how we can run our business more effectively and more efficiently as we have better access to our data. And there's also, you know, taking technology, and sometimes it's not innovative, it's just taking technology that we have and applying it to our business. And some of it can be fairly simple, but can have a huge impact on our business. For example, in safety. In our mines, we are currently installing technology that helps to manage fatigue. And you know, when we first started talking to the drivers of our big trucks, they didn't like this technology because can you imagine you go in for your shift and there's a big camera looking down on you the whole time. And so we put it in our simulators and our testing so that they could try it out. And the drivers found that it's actually identifying moments when they're detecting drowsiness. And so they realized that no, it's actually going to prevent accidents. And they want to have it installed. So it's fatigue management, it's collision avoidance technologies. We want to make sure that we send everybody home safely at the end of every shift.
So let me ask you, we're talking about hiring and talent. Do you find that plays a role? Do you get a lot of questions about what kind of tech stack you have, what kind of things? Like, are those sort of the questions that talent are asking about now?
Well, I'm not going to be able to answer that question as well as I would like to, because when I'm interviewing over the last year, it's been folks who are in the sustainability group and who are in the legal group that I was interviewing and talking to, and that wasn't as much of a technology play. But we have a lot of folks that come into our group that are in a central technology group that are, tasked with helping to run our business better, drive down costs, make it more effective, make it more environmentally efficient. So, I think there's a huge group of our employees that this is really exciting to them to be involved in technology.
Speaking of technology, obviously, Scott, you've got a technology company. I mean, it's a nice hybrid kind of a thing with kind of cool shit that you do over there. But let me ask you a question. Obviously, this is a report to community, and we're talking about community. How important or how much of an influence was it for you to have your company here, to grow and scale it here? Like, how important is community when you think about the business you have?
I had the distinct pleasure of talking at this last live event that CED had. Lots changed. Part of the Autobotics founding story is about community. It's about building the business here because, A, that's where I was here, and it's where my daughter was. Like, I needed to build it here. There was probably a lot better places historically to build a robotics company than Calgary. Boston, Silicon Valley. The support, though, that I got from my community throughout my life and my history made me proud to call Calgary home and want to do it here. And we received all the support anybody that's doing something different could ever hope for. We are an OSIF recipient. We were the second one. I believe OSIF invested in Autobotics when we had 22 people. I think we're a little over 300 right now. That wouldn't have happened without the support of this city. Certainly wouldn't have happened without the support we received federally and provincially. But I take that burden of support very seriously. My job isn't just to spend government money. My job is to deliver on what that support was intended for. To grow skilled jobs, develop IP, build, an opportunity as being part of the flywheel that starts to spin up the economic diversification of the city and ideally the province and the country. The investments that we've seen have paid off already in the journeys of the people that have come through and moved on from Autobotics already. Everything that they've learned in helping develop our ideas have now spurred and moved to other businesses. And we're bringing in the talent from other places as well, thanks to all of this support. They say it takes a village to raise a child. And it takes a community to raise a business like ours or anyone. It doesn't happen in a vacuum, and it doesn't happen without everybody's support contributing. So I'm proud to call Calgary home because it wasn't just the support of the business. Some of you know my story that I've been supported by the Calgary Food Bank when I couldn't feed myself and my kid. I've been supported by Catholic Family Services and Jewish Family Services when I needed that support. But now I've been supported by the business community, by the staff at my company. I can't talk about a more talented group of people than the people that have built Autobotics.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
No, and I'm just proud to see them go and continue to give to the community as they move through their careers.
Yeah, and it's interesting you talked about that. You made a point. I mean, I was reminded that today is actually Holocaust Remembrance Day. And so when you talk about the support that you received from different parts of our community, I think it's important for us to acknowledge that as we know that a lot of that part of the community was not accepted a lot of times. And I think it's important for us to understand that and showcase that it is about the collaboration and the good that we have in our community. I mean, Salima, the same question to you. I mean, Calgary, like why Calgary? Why the 51? Why here? I mean, obviously this could have been somewhere else, but how did the community help support and drive what you guys sort of stood for and stood this up?
Yeah, I think, so the three founders of the 51 were both all set up in Calgary to begin with, and that's kind of why Calgary came out. But why did the 51 choose and Movement 51 choose to start and continue our organization here in Calgary? And I think from a Movement 51 perspective, it was the support from our academic service provider. So the University of Calgary was a big proponent, and through the Haskayne School of Business was a big academic service provider. And I just heard that U of C, a shout out to them, has just surpassed any other university across Canada to be the #1 creator of new companies. So really, like, their supporters, yes, I agree. So we surpassed Waterloo, Queen's where I went, or U of T in terms of creation of new companies. And U of C and the Haskayne School of Business really supported us through our academic learning. From a community aspect, the venture capital world, you mentioned Thin Air Labs, the 51 has lots of relationships with other venture capitalists that came in, they spoke to our investor group, they spoke to prospective investors, and kind of educated them based on their lived experience of investing in an early stage startup, this risky asset class that people were fearful of, and how do you start thinking about it in a more manageable and individual basis. And so from those two perspectives of community, having a strong service provider, and then going back to the government support, OSIF stepped up to the table and they gave us our first check that we needed. I had, I think, $2,000 in my bank account, and OSIF pushed us through a huge application process. We got through it, and they were the first check that actually came through that allowed us to then propel and now have about $1.5 million in government funding, and private organizations like Pembina and TD that have now joined on. So, yeah.
Amazing. And I didn't pay them to say that, by the way, but yeah, no. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you gave a shout out to Avatar earlier, and I was thinking about this, it takes a village, right? When I think about our employees, we have 30 employees who participate in the Avatar Innovation Lab every year. And this is something that's really exciting to these folks because they get to learn from one another, they get to talk about their ideas, talk to people who have experience, talk to experts who give them feedback. And now you've got something that started here in Calgary that's not only nurturing our employees, but nurturing this whole innovation space. And it's an important part of this village of Calgary.
Yeah, and we love the idea of being able to sort of start pushing that entrepreneurial spirit inside of larger corporations. So Arlene, I just want to ask you a question. I mean, how important was it for you from the Pathways perspective to be in Calgary? Obviously, you could have went into the lion's den and tried to do something from afar, but why was Calgary so important to make sure that the Pathways was set up here?
Well, this is the heart of where so much of this is happening. And so for us to collaborate here in Alberta and Calgary, we've got the office space, we've got the connections, we're working with government, we're working with other stakeholders. We've got people that are encouraging us. So this is a space where we think if we can pull this off here in Calgary, here in Alberta, here in Canada, we can be an example to the energy industry globally of what can be done to reduce our carbon footprint, to be competitive over the long term, and to be providing carbon-abated energy decades from now.
Couldn't agree more. We keep telling people, if you're truly serious about wanting to solve that challenge, there is no better place in the world than right here in Calgary. Look, I could keep this going for another hour. I'm sure people would love to hear this as well. But we got like 4 minutes left. It's the rapid round. Salima, what's the one thing in 30 seconds or less you want the audience to take away from today?
Yeah, it's not a plug to OSIF again, but be that OSIF. Write that first check. Be that activist individual. And the panel earlier kind of talked about it to say, play in circles that you haven't really played in before. And my how is by volunteering. Give of your time. I sit on various not-for-profit boards, and I've been really fortunate to be able to get exposed to different types of people and different types of thinking with a very low threshold on the stakeholder involvement. So that would be my how.
Right.
So thanks.
Arlene, same question. Rapid fire.
Well, I loved Lourdes' answer, so I'm going to build on it a little bit. I think that collaboration is so important as we think about accelerating transformation. So look around this room. Think about you're going to be the one that gets shouted out next year at the report to the community because you got people together to work together on a challenge, on an opportunity. And I think we really can accelerate transformation and lead in so many areas if we work together.
Awesome. All right, I started with you, I'm going to end with you.
We live on an island. I think we need to realize that all the support exists, all the talent is here, all the resources here, and the timing is right to start building globally dominant businesses from Calgary. I'm not trying to be the best robotics company in Calgary or even in Alberta or in Canada. I'm trying to build the best robotics company in the world, and I fully believe that I can do that here.
So I'm going to go against what I usually do. I'm actually going to have my 2 seconds. The one thing I would suggest that this audience needs to know is you need to be the first client to our companies. You need to buy Calgary technologies. You need to be that client. Writing checks is great, but having clients is even better. So I'm going to leave that with you. Arlene, Salima, Scott, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for the time.
Okay, so we did promise you an action-packed afternoon, which does mean we're running a little bit behind. And we have some very special guests waiting in the wings. So I'm going to welcome Navin Arora, Executive Vice President at TELUS and President of TELUS Business, and a member of CED's Board of Directors, to the stage to share some remarks, after which point we will move to our political panels. Welcome, Navin.
Dear Western Canada, over the years, we've both grown. We've celebrated victories and weathered a few storms. We'd move mountains for you, but we'd all miss the view. Our connection runs deep, connecting old friends, new smiles, and neighbors near and far. Because when you're homegrown, there's nothing more rewarding than helping your home grow. Share your love letters to Western Canada for a chance to win great prizes from TELUS.
Okay, thank you very much, Jerry, and good afternoon, everyone. I will keep it short because I know I'm between all of you and the main event today. So on behalf of the TELUS team, I'd like to extend my heartfelt thanks to Joe Lougheed, who's right up here, Brad Parry, and the entire CED team for organizing today's event. Something that I look forward to every year, and not just as a member of the TELUS team, but of course as a proud Calgarian. I've had the pleasure to serve on the board of CED now for almost 2 years, and the reason why I'm committed to CED is really quite simple, and it happens to be the same reason why I wanted to share that video with all of you today. I love this city. I love the people, I love the strength of the innovation and resilience of the businesses and organizations that are operating here, and I love the spirit and diversity of our community, and I love the legendary entrepreneurial spirit of Calgary and why it's known for that. And here's what else I love. I love that CED is making a meaningful difference in our city's economic, social, environmental, and cultural vibrancy. The work they're doing doesn't just benefit all of us here today, it will actually benefit generations to come. My young daughters, your families and friends, and the future entrepreneurs and businesses who choose Calgary as their home. And the future of Calgary is something TELUS believes in wholeheartedly. Alberta has been the home for TELUS now for over 100 years. It's actually where our story began. And with the opening of TELUS Sky just down the street last year, it's where our story will continue because we believe in this city's potential. We believe in the West, which is why we've invested nearly $60 billion in technology and operations in Alberta over the last 23 years. And over 16,000 team members and retirees in Alberta believe in the West too, which is why together we've proudly contributed over $63 million to local causes across Calgary since 2000. We've been proudly connecting Western Canadians for decades, and if there's one thing I would love for you to walk away believing today, it's that you can count on us to continue making critical investments to support Calgary's long-term success. And based on the fact that you're all here today, I think you would agree that in order to do this, all levels of government, business, and community must work together towards our common goal, a bright and successful future for Calgary. This is why events like today are just so critical. When we look at where we want Calgary to be 5 months or 5 years from now, it really starts with the actions we take in this room. The important decisions and connections made today will help shape the future. Great moments come from great opportunities, and that's what we have in front of us. The opportunity to rejuvenate the downtown core, to help businesses and industries new and old thrive in a digital world, and to make Calgary the absolute best place and most inclusive and diverse place to live and work. As we look to the future, TELUS is here to partner with all of you. We'll continue our legacy of investment, innovation, and giving back to our communities to ensure a prosperous future for all Calgarians. And that includes investing $17 billion in technology and operations through to 2026, creating 8,500 new jobs, and connecting Albertans to what matters most. TELUS knows the West because we're from here, and you can count on TELUS to do the work to help all of you, your families, and our city to reach its full potential. Thanks, everyone, and have a great evening.
Thank you, Navin. TELUS Business is a longtime Team Calgary partner and the networking sponsor of today's event, so thank you, TELUS, for your continued support. Okay. It is now time to welcome Rachel Notley, Leader of the Official Opposition, to stage for a conversation with Calgary Mayor Jyoti Gondek. Sure. Rachel Notley was elected Premier in May 2015 when she formed the province's first NDP government. Since 2019, she has continued to serve in the legislature as the Leader of the Official Opposition, and she has represented her constituency of Edmonton-Strathcona since 2008. It's my pleasure to welcome to the stage Rachel Notley.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and I will get right to it. I know everybody's been patient. We've got some questions that we would like to ask you, so let me just kick it off with the first one. This one has to do with economic development. We all know that Calgary's economy is diverse, and recent years have marked record-breaking venture capital investment and the scaling of innovative companies. To stimulate growth, the city has created and funded organizations to assist with attraction and retention of talent, businesses, and tourism. So we would like to know, what economic incentive programs and investments will your government champion to encourage business attraction and retention across all sectors in Calgary?
Well, really good question and really important question. And let me just say, first of all, to everybody in the room, obviously you're really concerned and committed to the issues that we're discussing today. It's a little bit late in the day, and I know, some of you may have been up celebrating LA's win last night. And nonetheless, I appreciate the time that you are clearly demonstrating to be part of this conversation or to listen to the conversation. So obviously, it's so critically important that we diversify the economy across Alberta and, of course, in Calgary as well. And there's a lot of different things that we can do to incent that. So, we talk a bit, and I know there has been some conversation, for instance, about, the growth in venture capital investment and in tech investment, and that's really exciting. But I'll also say, and I don't mean to be a downer, but the reality is that we're seeing a growth in that kind of investment all across the world and all across the country. And in some ways, Alberta's not actually growing at quite the same rate as other parts of the country, and we're a little bit below the national average. And I feel that that is because we haven't had a provincial partner that's focused on the value of diversification for the last 4 years. Indeed, the term of the current government started with the declaration that diversification was a bit of a long-term luxury. We don't believe that. We think we need to have a series of efforts to incent investment, particularly investment in emerging businesses. and emerging sectors. So I was very pleased to speak to the Calgary Chamber in December and roll out our competitiveness jobs investment strategy. That talked about a series of incentives that were focused on attracting investment here. So we were talking about the Alberta's Future Tax Credit, which is designed to provide a little bit of counter to what we're seeing in the US with the IRA. And also the digital media tax credit, which will be a really important way to attract more investment in that sector, and also to build off of the good work done in the film and TV sector. And I want to give credit where it's due. The current regime brought in by the current government has had great impact, but I think we can do better and we can do more. And I think bringing the digital media tax credit in to make sure that production and post-production stays in Alberta is a good way to help with that. We're also interested in introducing a sort of a regulatory fast pass, for lack of a better term, that's sort of like your Nexus line at the airport. And it's basically designed to reward those important, or those good actors in the investment world, proponents who have a good record of corporate citizenship. And so that's another thing. And then finally, because it's a long conversation and I could probably take up the whole 20 minutes, but the other thing that's really important is that we desperately need to reinvest in our post-secondary sector. And post-secondary is post-secondary is a critical partner in business development. And quite honestly, you see, it is the area that has received the greatest brunt of cuts over the last 4 years. There's been quite a liberal amount of cutting over the last 4 years, but post-secondary has faced the worst of it. And you'll see places like U of C that's trying to deal with a 20% cut in its budget. How are they going to help with licensing and innovation and research and attracting talent and creating new spaces and training those folks that we need to train when that kind of budget cut has happened? And not only is it important for partnering with the private sector in terms of developing new business, it's also important for us to keep our kids and our young people here. I have always said that our greatest resource is not actually under the ground, it's walking on top of it. We have enjoyed the benefit of being the youngest, best educated province in the country for a very long time. But if we don't have the university spaces and we don't have affordability and access, then our young people are going to start leaving the province, and that's going to hurt our economy. So those are a few of the things that form our overall plan. And as I say, I could talk much longer. I know you want to talk about downtown Calgary specifically, and we've got more things that we want to talk about there. So I will stop my little university lecture on what we would do.
That is quite a segue. Thank you for that. I don't know if anyone's ever heard me say this, but the City of Calgary has invested $450 million to revitalize our downtown, to enhance the creative economy, to build infrastructure, and really start generating vibrancy downtown. This investment has attracted private sector capital, and that's a trend that we see continuing. So what measures will your government put in place to match the investments that we have made to ensure that revitalization continues and we don't lose the momentum we have?
So let me start by saying, congratulations to the city for the work that you've been doing. It is a very focused effort to deal with a significant problem. Let's be clear, we all remember what downtown Calgary should look like. Bustling, full of activity, full of entrepreneurial spirit, full of culture, full of people. And really standing as a bit of a beacon, not only in Alberta, but across the continent as a place to be, to want to be. And I believe that we can get back there. And part of the reason, that is part of the reason why roughly a year ago this month, we were very pleased to roll out our downtown revitalization strategy as in the Alberta NDP caucus. And it included a number of pieces to it, including the commitment to match the roughly $200 million that the city had set aside for residential conversion of office space. But more holistically, and you identified this in your question, we need to look at how we get people downtown. We need to look at how we increase vibrancy, and we need to look at how we deal with public safety and the sense of safety. And so when it comes to getting people downtown, as I've said, we're prepared to step up and be a partner with respect to some of the office conversion work. And we also, just a couple weeks ago, announced our affordable housing strategy, which includes a couple of things that would be relevant to the downtown strategy. One, about 8,500 new units, some of which we could see come down here. And then also additional wraparound services for folks who are struggling to find homes. And so I think all of that will help bring people down here. Vibrancy, our plan talks about grants with respect to supporting arts and festival organizations and giving them that little lift to create that sense down here of coming down here, as well as things like storefront grants for small business that are on that retail level. And then, of course, the economy, and working with stakeholders, with the city, with post-secondaries, with the private sector to build that innovation hub downtown. And so part of that, you know, we've been talking about that for some time, and one way to do that is to expand a multi-institutional post-secondary footprint downtown. And so yesterday we were very pleased to map out what will be part of our platform, which is a $200 million commitment to investing in a post-secondary footprint here, because we know that the work around innovation and commercialization and all that kind of stuff is way more successful if it's done in a downtown campus. So I think that's really important for the vibrancy piece. And finally, when we talk about public safety, I applaud the current government for having put some money back in to hire police officers. That's good. I'm a bit relieved. It is a step towards giving back the money that was taken away in 2019 when they redistributed fine revenue. So we've committed to doing that full redistribution and undoing that change. So that would go back to municipalities. And we'd like to pair those new police officers with frontline support workers, more social workers, more health people, mental health therapists, more nursing, that kind of folks, to help people who are at risk downtown and whose the insecurity in their life is creating some of the causes of the public safety challenges that we're facing. And the last thing I will say on this front around security is that since 2019, we've lost about 8,000 affordable housing units for lack of funding. And a further 6,000 people have had their rent supplement ended. And so when you do that, it has consequences. And we are seeing some of those consequences. And so our affordable housing policy that I referenced early is part of trying to undo that work and get back to a place where we're restoring a bit more certainty and security to folks who happen to be downtown right now.
Great, thank you very much, very comprehensive. You've touched on this a little bit, and I'd love to hear a bit more. The most wicked problems that are facing cities across this country require a combined focus on intersecting issues, things like mental health, addictions, and poverty. So how will your government encourage better integration, not only between departments, but also collaboration with municipalities and federal governments to bridge the expansion and creation of programs to serve people in positions of vulnerability?
Well, let me start, of course, by giving some compliments to the city in terms of some of the work that you've done here and other municipalities have done in other centers in terms of ultimately trying to deal with some of those challenges. And let's face it, you're sort of the first line of defense. And so when other governments step back from the work that they should be doing, cities and frankly businesses end up being the ones who see it sort of right up front, particularly in downtown cores, but also obviously residents in their neighborhoods too. what I have seen over some time is there's been a little bit of an awkward kind of, you talk about these issues and then people try not to make eye contact, and then there's a little bit of, oh, this is another person's jurisdiction. And I really believe that that has to end. I really believe that a lot of these issues are squarely within the responsibility of the provincial government. And my commitment is to lean into those issues and to work hard to try and undo some of the damage that has happened, not just in the last 4 years, but the last 8 or 10 or 12. I mean, we've been through some tough times in Alberta, economically, fiscally, and if we don't turn our mind to ensuring that the recovery that we are starting to experience is shared by everyone, then we will have the kinds of problems that you describe. And so my idea to get everybody to work together better is for the province to really lean in and say, listen, this is ours too, or maybe completely, or maybe mostly, or depending on what we're talking about. And we want to work with you. We want to collaborate. We want to find solutions. You and also the federal government. I don't want to leave any federal money on the table. That ridiculousness has to stop. And then I just want to look at solving problems. And hopefully, during that process, there might even be a small window where we manage to depoliticize the effort and simply focus on success and solutions.
Fantastic. I'm going to ask you one more of my prepared questions, and I'm going to look to somebody, whoever that might be, to tell me when I should look at the iPad for questions. I can go ahead with another one. Okay, thank you. So we're going to turn to municipal funding, another one of my favorite topics. Municipalities are the order of government that is actually closest to its constituents, but we are also that order of government that has the least amount of control over funding. So the question is, how would your provincial government provide certainty and predictability on funding received through property taxes to the City of Calgary to ensure that we can best serve people with the budget that we have?
Well, I think it's an interesting question because I'm not 100% sure how we can impact what's received through property taxes. I think that is mostly municipal jurisdiction. But what we can do is give you better line of sight around how much you need to get from property taxes. And so that then has implications for your other revenue streams, which of course include revenue streams from the provincial government. In any given year, the provincial government will roll out in a whole variety of programs roughly $2 billion a year out to municipalities, but only if they do it on a regular basis and it can be relied upon. And that's, I know, caused a great deal of trial and tribulation. I will say this, I was very proud in late 2018 to have been able to negotiate the city charter deals with both, the big city charter deals with both Edmonton and Calgary. And we put that into legislation and everybody voted to support it. It was across the board. And the opposition at the time agreed to maintain it. And then, as you know, soon after, the charters were ripped up, and there were a number of other components of municipal funding that were pulled back. And I know that that created a lot of instability for our municipal partners. I will say now that the LGFF, which is in play, comes relatively close to meeting a lot of the same objectives that were represented through the charters. There's some differences, but I think it's not entirely off base. The challenge is that if history is any indicator, the current government supported the charters before the election and then they didn't. And the question becomes, will the LGFF in its current form be there after the election? And my commitment is that the things you get post-election will be the very things that you are guaranteed pre-election. That's how I ran the government before, and that's how I will run it again if I earn the privilege of being able to do that.
Thank you. All right, now we have two questions from the audience. The first one is, how will your government leverage the energy transition opportunity to grow our economy and encourage investment to realize a net zero economy?
So, really good question. Let me start by saying this. You know, there's well over $60 billion of investment money out there that is available for us to bring not only to Canada, but to Alberta. And so we need to be very intentional about that. And the way to do that, first of all, we need to stop using our oil and gas industry as a political football. It should not be that, okay? It contributes to Alberta's economy, it contributes greatly to Canada's economy, and that is just what it is. And secondly, and as a sort of an extension to that principle, we cannot pit economic growth against environmental leadership. If we do that, we will fail on both. We must put them together. And by embracing that concept, we then are well positioned to go after those investment dollars. And so that's what we need to do, because the race to net zero, the race to meet our climate obligations or necessities is actually an opportunity if we approach it properly. So how do we do that? Well, I want to lead a government that is a partner, a willing partner in that effort. And what does that look like? Well, a couple things. First of all, we need a government that's prepared to offer their own incentives. So, you know, we've got the federal government's come to the table somewhat. I think there's room for them to do more. And I look forward to the opportunity to make that case. Provincial government has to come to the table too. The U.S. has changed the game considerably with the IRA, and we need to make sure that that money does not flow south. It's got to flow north, and then it's got to flow west, right here, right to Alberta. That's the opportunity. We have been an energy leader. We must be again. And so that's one thing. And the second thing is we need regulatory certainty. And that regulatory certainty takes two forms. First of all, we have to get rid of this ridiculous Sovereignty Act. We need to say to outside investors that we respect the rule of law and that they can count on it if they put their money here. Secondly, when it comes to regulations, they need to be realistic. So when the federal government came out with their draft emissions regulations, I was the first provincial politician to step up and say, nope, these aren't realistic, and they're not going to work if they're not realistic. And I maintain that position. It is the job of the provincial government, at least in part, or to be one of the players at the table, making sure that we map out something that's realistic and that the path includes steps and efforts that are also realistic. And then once you've got that, then you work the plan. We have wasted at least a year and a half not doing that. And that's left investment dollars on the table. It's left investment dollars not here. It's left them somewhere either leaving or sitting on the table, but not being put to work here. And you know, this is a big problem. It's a wicked problem, to use your phrase, but it's not unmanageable. It just requires rolling up your sleeves and doing the hard work. And that's what I'd really like to be part of.
Great. Thank you. I'm looking to Jerry. One more? Okay. Apparently, wrap it up was the signal I got, but I'm going to ask you one question. Oh. And you're going to answer it so rapidly.
Oh, you think so, Dia?
It's like
what
we're wrapping
think?
It up.
Hands up that I'm going to answer it rapidly. Anybody? Who thinks that? Anybody? I don't think so.
Okay, here we go. How will your government address increasing costs of living for all Albertans?
Well, that's a huge issue, and I think there's a number of elements to it. There's no simple answer. Provincial government, of course, can't control international inflationary pressures, nor can it control interest rates. There are certain things that we can control ourselves. One of the things, you know, regular folks are a little bit overwhelmed by the fact that utilities never seem to stop going up. We need to find long-term ways, not only to give families relief, but also to give them predictability. Half the battle is predictability and being able to plan for these things. We also need to look at things that fees we impose on families through provincial law, like insurance. We tell people they have to have insurance, and then we allow for insurance to go up 30 to 40%. That is not something that I support, and we had a cap in place before, and we want to put it back there. And then there's other things that, thank you. There's other things that most other, many families, myself included, and I think probably many folks in this room, is, our kids hopefully are going to school here, are investing in their future, are attending some form of post-secondary, and we've seen an incredible spiraling of costs there, and we've got to get that under control because regular families all want that opportunity for their kids. Some people save, their whole life. Their kids are born and they start saving in their RSP the minute that happens. And the number of parents I've heard from who said, yeah, I had an RSP, it's done. I thought it would last for 4 years. We burned through it in 1.5, and now I'm just not sure what we're gonna do. So those are a few examples of the way we will support families to make life more affordable.
Great. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know I speak on behalf of everyone in the audience when I say thank you very much. It was great to hear from you. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
I think we've got to keep going now, right?
Oh, wait, you don't want me to stay? I'm just kidding. Just kidding. All right. Okay.
Good to
Thanks
see
very
you.
much.
Take care.
Oh, I'm going to take that
Thank
too.
you both for that candid conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now let's welcome the Honourable Danielle Smith, Premier of Alberta, to join Mayor Gondek on stage. As leader of the governing United Conservative Party, Premier Smith was sworn in as the 19th Premier of Alberta in October 2022. She represents the riding of Brooks Medicine Hat in the Legislative Assembly, and she was previously MLA for Highwood and the leader of the official opposition. Welcome, the Honourable Danielle Smith.
Hello, Premier. It's very nice to see you. I think we've got a fresh water for you.
Oh, well, thank you, Mayor. Nice to see you as well.
So we'll do the same thing that we just did with our previous guest, and we'll ask you a few questions, and then I've got an iPad that'll feed me questions from the audience. So let's start off with the one that's talking about economic development. Calgary's economy is diverse, and in recent years, we've marked record-breaking venture capital investments and scaling of innovative companies. To stimulate growth, the city has taken on initiatives and funded organizations to attract and retain talent. So what economic incentive programs and investments will your government champion to encourage business attraction and retention across sectors in Calgary?
Well, one of the main things that we did as a government is send a signal to the world that we were open for business by reducing the corporate income tax down to 8%, and it's had a remarkable effect. We now get more corporate income tax revenue than we ever have, $6.4 billion. We also embarked on a red tape reduction exercise. We went from an F in regulatory red tape to an A- in the CFIB assessment of red tape. And that sends another signal to business that you want to make it easy for them to get up, get started so that they can start earning that first dollar in revenue. I think our Alberta film tax credit has been extraordinary. How many of you saw Last of Us? Does no one play video games? I mean, my husband played that video game, so I had to end up watching it. And if you want to get a kick, watch season 2, because they blow up the office at the legislature, so that was kind of fun to watch. You'll see other amazing CGI that comes from that, trying to identify all the different spots. We also have just established an agri-food tax credit, and I think you're going to see an amazing amount of investment that comes out of that. You saw perhaps that $600 million has been invested by McCain's, the biggest investment that they've made since the 1950s to expand their French fry factory. I understand there's 200 additional agri-food projects that are looking for a partner with the municipality in order to be able to develop. I've given some direction to my Technology and Innovation Minister, Nate Glubish, to establish a digital media production tax credit so that we can support our video game industry as well. And we've also had a major partnership with Platform Calgary, which is just an amazing new building as a center for innovation, and Startup TNT. We've been supporting them through Alberta Innovates and the Alberta Enterprise Corporation so that we are able to attract additional dollars. You mentioned that we had record venture capital investment last year, went up to $729 million. Most of that is right here in Calgary, about $647 million and I think 54 deals. So I feel like that's the kind of environment we need to create. You of course know that we're doing our Alberta is Calling campaign, and it's working. We've had 6 quarters of people moving into our province, and I think that that's going to keep on going. So we just want to make sure that we've got stability, that people know that they're going to have a low tax environment, that they can trust that they're going to continue to have a low regulatory environment, and we're looking forward to that continuing.
Fantastic. Let's talk about downtown revitalization. And okay, now this will be the second time I'm saying it in this room, the millionth time I've said it. The City of Calgary has invested $450 million to revitalize downtown, enhance the creative economy, build infrastructure, and generate vibrancy downtown. This investment has attracted private sector capital, and we're seeing that momentum building. What measures will your government put in place to match the investments that the city has made? And how can we continue this momentum of private sector investment through work that you will do?
I just love what the private sector is doing to rejuvenate some of the buildings downtown, like the Edison and the Ampersand. If you haven't had a chance to look at those buildings, they, I think, really do appeal to the new desire of the creative class to be able to have a different type of building. And so when you get the economics right and people see that this is the place to be, they will come and they will do that kind of investment. We know that we've got to continue to ensure that we have the best business environment. And one of the things we've been focusing on is how we can help build out all of the economic corridors in and around the city to be able to enhance the supply chain lines. So for instance, the deal with WestJet, I noticed that I think they are your sponsor here, which is going to be, I think, amazing for our city in being able to establish all of those direct flights. I went to their opening and we now have direct flights to Rome and Barcelona and Edinburgh and various other places. I think that's going to be wonderful as a business attraction, but also a tourism attraction. We also are seeing just to the east of the city in Wheatland County, the development of de Havilland. And the interesting thing about that is that they want to repatriate their supply chains too. So there's going to be an immense opportunity in being able to build out the supply chains associated with that. We're going to be upgrading the Deerfoot, finally. If those of you who heard me on radio heard me complaining every day about that interchange at Anderson and Southland. We have to hand that back over to the city once the ring road is complete. We want to make sure we're handing it over in good shape. We also have committed to finish the ring road. We are, have dedicated some dollars and made a commitment that we would like to partner with the city and the federal government on building that last leg to the airport, so that we have an LRT going directly from the airport to downtown. And in total, we've got about $3 billion worth of capital investment that we're putting into the city of Calgary. There's, of course, a couple of other things we'd love to be able to support, like, for instance, if the city and the Flames group could come to an agreement on an event center, we would stand by doing whatever we can to assist with that. I think that is going to be essential to finishing off the development in East Village. So I'll let the mayor tell you whether or not that's going to be possible. But the other part too is that I think we all know, and I was delighted, Mayor, that you worked with us to make an announcement of a major investment in policing and mental health supports in the city. You'll see that we'll develop more, and I can talk about this a little bit later. Our approach on a recovery-oriented system of care is going to include building recovery communities in Alberta so that those who have mental health and addiction issues have a safe place to go for recovery. But we also want to make sure that people feel safe and comfortable when they come downtown for a game or a meal or driving transit or riding on transit. And we want to partner with the city to ensure that we're dealing with both sides of those issues, that we not only have the support for those who need it, but we're also cracking down on those who mean people harm. And so I think that we stand ready to do whatever it is the city needs us to do to enhance that investment. I think we're making some good progress, but there's always going to be more to do.
Premier, I'm going to pick up on that. That's okay, you can clap. Okay, so now I'm going to pick up on that. The most wicked problems that are facing cities across Canada require a combined focus on intersecting issues, as you mentioned, like mental health, addictions, and poverty. So how will your government encourage better integration between departments while collaborating with municipalities and the federal government to bridge expansion and creation of programs that are going to serve people in positions of vulnerability?
Well, let me talk a little bit about our Alberta model, as it's getting known as, for our recovery-oriented system of care. I think all of us have had a family member who has succumbed to mental health or addiction. I know I did. My Uncle Larry ended up dying after many, many years of struggling with mental health and addiction at quite a young age, at age 55. And so it's been an issue of mine to how can we make sure that doesn't happen to any other family? And so I've been looking around the world for different types of approaches to help those to get into recovery. And I met Marshall Smith, who happens to be my chief of staff. He was recruited to be the chief of staff for our first mental health and addictions minister, which was Mike Ellis. And Marshall has a story. I can share it because he shares it often. He lived on the street of Vancouver East Side for 4.5 years. And he was given a choice by an officer who befriended him. You can go into recovery or you can go to jail for a long time. And he chose recovery. And for 17 years, he's been on that pathway, paying it forward. He's developed this approach of a recovery-oriented system of care where we look at it as an entire system that we've got to build around a person so that they can build recovery capital. That when you see the recovery community that we open in Calgary, it'll look much like the one we have in Red Deer. Red Deer's the first one, where it's a facility with 75 beds, 50 on the male side, 50 on the female side. It's got a kitchen, so people will learn how to shop and cook and do basic chores, get some basic skills. They'll do deep therapy in the morning and chores in the afternoon, or vice versa. And whether they need a month or 6 months or a year, we're going to help them build that capital, rebuild their connections with their family, with their community, get a job at the end, get the wraparound supports so that they can go on to get their agency back, to get their lives back. And the organization that we hired to do our recovery community in Red Deer, they have a 77 to 85% success rate in getting people off addiction. And so we're so excited about this approach. So we're 4 years into an 8-year plan, and so that's sort of the caring side of what it is that we are trying to do. The sort of the conservative side of it is on the issue of public safety and public order. And I think I'd already mentioned the press conference that we did a couple of weeks ago with the mayor and the two chiefs in Calgary and Edmonton. But all of the premiers are going to be meeting on Friday with the chiefs of police at their request, because they want all of us to have a concerted effort to make sure we're dealing with the public disorder, with the crime. We're hearing about random stabbings and random assaults in every one of our communities. It's a problem that's taking place across the entire country. And one of the issues, and the federal government, to their credit, has acknowledged it, is that they changed the bail conditions years ago, only about 3 years ago, where we don't keep people behind bars anymore, even if they commit violent crimes. And so we need them to change that, because I can tell you the stats are terrifying. In Edmonton, in the last 3 years under this new catch and release type of approach, 26 homicides have been committed by people who would have otherwise been behind bars. And in Calgary, Chief Neufeld told us that it was a similar number. We've had 23 homicides committed by people who've been behind bars. That's just demoralizing for our police service, to know that they're catching somebody, trying to get them into incarceration, and then they get released and come back out. So those, I think, are going to be the most important ways that we can partner with the federal government. I should mention that even though I scrap with the federal government from time to time, as you may know, on certain issues, on the issue of healthcare, we're in perfect alignment. We signed on to a 10-year agreement representing $24 billion in new dollars. And I should mention, because you may have heard it somewhere, that one of the principles that we've signed on to, the first principle, is that we'll abide the principles of the Canada Health Act, that you cannot pay for a family doctor and you cannot pay out of pocket for surgical services. So we've signed a 10-year agreement on that basis. And we're going to continue to work with them on developing additional streams so that we can support some of the priorities that they've identified. One of them being additional supports for youth mental health and addiction services. So I think that we've got actually some really great partnerships. One last thing I should mention is that we did negotiate a deal with the federal government as well to support a childcare model that will ultimately move us to $10 a day daycare. It took a little bit of work because they didn't want us to add private for-profit daycare, so we fought it to an agreement on that one as well. So we'll be able to add additional childcare spaces, and that's going to support a lot of working families and a lot of working women so that they're able to continue on with their careers. So I would say that those are really positive ways in which we've demonstrated that we can work together.
Great. Let's talk about municipal funding. You know that municipalities are the order of government that's closest to constituents, but we're also the one that has the least amount of control over funding received. We rely quite heavily on property taxes. So tell us about how your provincial government would provide financial certainty and predictability of funding. And how would you look at property taxes that the City of Calgary collects to ensure that we can best meet Calgarians' needs through our budget?
I think you'll have to correct me if I've got the number wrong, but I think you'd mentioned that we collect about $177 million more in education property tax from Calgarians than you get back in provincial transfers. And I'm mindful of that because I feel like Ottawa, I'm having the same battle with Ottawa, that I feel like they take more than they need and then they do not give back to Alberta as much as we end up contributing. And if they do, they give it back with conditions. And I think if I'm trying to be consistent, then we shouldn't be doing that to our municipalities. I respect the municipalities' autonomy over the areas that they have under our Municipal Government Act, and I respect the fact that every municipality has different priorities, and the locally elected individuals on council and the mayors are the ones who have the best idea of how to spend that money. So one of the first things that we did, now that we've gotten back into budget balance, is that we have reinvested in our municipal partnership. We had funding grants, used to be MSI, and it's now the Local Government Enhancement Grant, I believe is what we call it. And it's going to be increasing with the increase in our revenue. So as our overall revenues go up, we're going to be increasing the amount that we could forward on to municipalities. We've got a terrific municipal affairs minister, Rebecca Schultz, and I've asked her to consult with municipalities on how we might be able to keep more of that education portion of the property tax in the cities where it's generated. So whether we do that through having enhanced projects where we're working on them together and getting three-party funding, or whether we just vacate more of that room or do more direct transfers, I think that we've got to have a principle that more of those dollars should stay here. And the reason I've thought that is because when we first developed this municipal transfer program, it was under Premier Ed Stelmach. He wanted to transfer to municipalities the same amount as was being collected in education property taxes. At that time, it was $1.2 billion. So today, we're collecting $2.5 billion in education property taxes, and I think in total we transfer back $1.4 billion. And so if we don't correct this imbalance, we're going to keep on taking more education property tax out and not having it returned to the city. So I feel like we should try to find a way to bridge that gap.
Great, thank you for that. I'm going to go to a question from the audience now. First one is, what is your plan to address the needs of post-secondary students in Alberta?
We have done a number of things based on the feedback that we got from our post-secondary student leaders. There's a number of different associations, and one of the things they've been frustrated with is not having stability in the year-over-year increase in tuition. So we've put in a policy where we've capped the year-over-year increase so it can't increase any more than 2%. We have also reduced the interest rate that they will pay on student loans, so it's down to prime, because we haven't seen an increase in escalation in interest costs. And the third thing is that we have allowed for them to have 12 months instead of 6 months to be able to start paying their loans. So when you graduate, you normally have to an interest-free period before you have to start paying that. With 6 months, we've increased that to 12 months. The other thing that we're looking at doing is trying to find more options for kids to get accessible education. And so we are expanding out our community colleges. We've increased our number of spaces in post-secondary, and we were creating a pathway for career colleges and community colleges to get academic institution status. There's three colleges that are in the mix on that. So we feel that if there are more options for students to be able to access more programs, that's going to be able to assist. Plus, we also want to try to find a way to connect young people to careers and professions early as well, because that's another aspect of post-secondary. We found in one of our studies that when we were looking at skilled trades and professions, that the average age of somebody entering into an apprenticeship was 27. And so when you think about the 10 years of a gap that you would have before getting connected, before these kids are getting connected to something that might be a lifelong career, we felt like we needed to do a little bit more to connect them earlier. So Adriana LaGrange, our education minister, has just completed a consultation about finding pathways so that we can connect young people earlier to some of those opportunities in high school that would then bridge onto to college or university. So those are a few things that we're working on.
And I've got the final rapid fire question for you because we need to wrap things up. Arts, culture, and heritage are an important part of our community. What will your party do to support them?
Well, I can tell you one of the things that I have been lobbied on in both Calgary and Edmonton, and it was the suggestion that we have the same kind of tax credit for the traditional arts that we do for the film tax credit. So if you know how the film tax credit works, it's a refundable tax credit based on how much a film production spends on their labor. And so what's been suggested to me is if we can develop some kind of parallel type of approach, that would be able to support opera and theater and the ballet. And I think that when you look at the incredible work that you're doing with Arts Commons, creating such a wonderful jewel in downtown, that's going to be an attractor for people coming in from all over. It gives wonderful opportunities for people to enjoy their downtown even more. That is something that I would take a closer look at.
Great, thank you. We are getting the signal that we are winding things down. Really appreciate you taking the time to be with us. My pleasure. Just watch your. Great to see you. Take care.
Thank you again to the Premier and to Mayor Gondek for that conversation. So before we conclude today's event, we would like to announce the winner of the WestJet flight vouchers. This includes 2 round trips to anywhere WestJet flies and a donation of 1 round trip flight to one of WestJet's selected charities. The winner, I'm told, is Maria Martinello. Is she still in the audience? I hear some clapping, so congratulations, Maria. We have a number of city councilors and elected officials in the room. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you to our speakers, to our panelists, and to all of you who joined Report to the Community. Another special thank you to our sponsors, Team Calgary Partners, and the staff at the TELUS Convention Center for helping us bring this event to life. We look forward to seeing all of you back here November the 1st at Calgary Economic Development's Economic Outlook. As you all make your way outside, you're going to hear a trio of young artists. We have Takumi Rogers on cello, Ethan Mung playing the viola, and Robert Mulcrone playing the violin. Please stop by and say hello and enjoy the music. And we're going to end by sharing, for the very first time, a new reel demonstrating the amazing work being done in the digital media and entertainment sector. Thank you all and enjoy your evening.
Try to catch me now?
I know a place that's as tough as it is compassionate, a place with an unwavering work ethic and immeasurable heart. Qualities woven into the fabric of this city and its people. You see it in the day-to-day moments and the moments it's needed most. This place is Calgary, Alberta, a future-proof city, diverse in culture and diverse in economy. You might know it for its oil, farming, the Red Mile, or the greatest outdoor show on earth. But you'd only be scratching the surface. Calgary is a whole lot more. Anything is possible here. See, if you've got a dream and you're willing to do the work, Calgary has your back. The proof is in the people, the entrepreneurs that built this city, the innovators, risk takers, and artists. The proof is in the work they've done and keep on doing. It's in the culture they've created that keeps on inspiring. It's in the tech, energy, and life sciences sectors where cutting-edge, industry-disrupting work is being done every day. The proof is in our small businesses, a lot of them not so small anymore. This is the most livable city in all of North America, and one of the most livable cities on the planet. 5th actually, but who's counting? So what's that mean? It means clocking out at 5 and being in the mountains for 6. It's a short commute that's easy or fun or breathtaking. Calgary is a city with a proud heritage and a limitless future. And if you want to be a part of all this, a part of something big, something special, that time is right now. And we'd be happy to have you. Be part of the energy.